Hi, my name is Crain, and welcome to entry number 2 of the Crain's Captain Log, the journal entries. I want to talk about, just for a second, the first part of the question, which is what keeps you up at night when you're thinking about these students that have been traumatized. And then I want to branch off into talking about this week's studies. And as I have shared previously, my husband and I are foster parents for the state of Louisiana, and we have several family friends that are also foster parents that have adopted a range of children from infants all the way up to teenagers. And one of the things, what's neat about this is I see trauma. I can see things in all of these different situations and these children, and I can see really awesome stories taking place of healing and redemption, and I can see continued trauma and horror that is just absolutely appalling. But I'm able to use what I'm learning through these programs to help other people that are experiencing issues with their children that maybe don't have this wisdom or this background or experience. And so that's been really, really cool. But the thing that is keeping me up at night is realizing that a lot of the people in power working with children that are traumatized do not look at children from a holistic approach or through a holistic lens. And they do simply see the behavior, or they see their end goal, and they're not willing to see the human being in between. We see that a lot in foster care. Lawmakers that have absolutely no relationship or understanding are making laws that literally are putting children in harm's way simply to appease their own agenda. And that keeps me up at night. It keeps me up at night that there are so many hurting children out there, and there aren't enough advocates for them. So I want to start with Chapter 7, creating a calm room. I kind of combined this with the in-school suspension room because they're very similar. Creating the calm room, what I knew, it was helpful for self-regulation. You need to set clear boundaries so it doesn't become an escape, and plan to help students process and return to the classroom. So it needs to have a really set arc of intentionality. What I was wondering is, how do you train students to use this so that it doesn't become like a little escape to get out of work or whatnot? What types of tools do you include, and how do you implement? Do you just set it up and tell them how to use it and unleash them directly on this, or like what more specifically? So what I learned specifically on page 67 of our text, it talks about sensory processing disorders. So overwhelming experiences during trauma can impact a child's nervous system. And our book says that they can become highly sensitive to sensory output. Their bodies have a difficult time processing and interpreting sensory signals. They're literally in a state of neurological overdrive, which then causes behavioral outbursts. It becomes common for these children, along with the inability to focus and sit still in the classroom. So we've identified that sensory processing disorders is an important thing. SPD is an important thing that we do need to address in the classroom. Children that have repeated exposure to trauma have a greater sense of, they're going to have these outbursts more, basically. And so what a calm room does is it helps them to take breaks from the classroom environment. And this can actually be one of the most helpful and proactive ways to support these students. That can be found on page 62 in our text. So a calm room is supervised, and this is the part where I found, because in my classroom, like, we can have a calm corner or calm location, and that was kind of where what I wonder, that was more what I was thinking of when I made those questions. A calm room is an actual separate space that these students can go to. And in reading some of the posts in our group discussions, some of the students that have posted their schools already using a trauma-informed approach, this is their ISS room. And so that's kind of where there's some overlap with these. But the calm room has a really intentional adult that is supervised and trained extensively in trauma. And the idea is not to isolate them in this room or take them out of it as a punitive response to their behavior, their outbursts, but rather to take them out of whatever is overstimulating them, so they can then come up They can then process through those feelings with a safe individual in a safe space, and then they can figure out, how can I make this different, and how can I learn tools and get tools in my tool belt so that it's not quite so overwhelming the next time I'm in a similar situation. And then they can come back to the classroom. So I love this isolation versus interaction. This is found on page 63. The most important element of this room is the interaction between the student and the calm supervisor. Simply having a child do a calming activity and then returning back to class is ineffective in the long run. The whole point is they are building that safe relationship that is helping them to navigate that overwhelm so that they can be successful individuals in a state of overwhelm in the future. So I really like that. This chapter also talked about the importance of feng shui. So safe and warm colors, a fan, incandescent lighting, fluorescent light panels, calming music, and essential oils. We heard about essential oils in the Edutopia video, Fall Hamilton Elementary School, which was the video posted in week 3. And I know I keep coming back to this video, but that video really impacted me and made a big difference. So actually, essential oils is something that I'm looking at introducing in my own classroom. So to kind of then move into chapter 8 for in-school suspensions, I knew that they could be a helpful tool, keep kids in school. How? And so this chapter I really found interesting because I like the idea of ISS, but how do you really make it proactive and effective? We have an ISS room in our school, but it is not run by a caring individual that's building relationships with these students. She is I can think of no accurate, appropriate term, but just like she's a stickler and just I want to say it like a ball buster, and I'm sorry for that phrase, but she's just really she's not cultivating any sort of relationship with these students whatsoever, and it's proving to be incredibly ineffective. It's the same students in there, and again, they're missing that relationship piece. And our text specifically says the goal of ISS is to teach students how to do things differently next time, which, that's essentially the calm room, right? So that's page 67. The supervisor needs to be run by a professional that has those characteristics, that they're understanding their trauma-informed approach, educated. They are looking to form those relationships and really make a difference with those students and not just have it be a punitive punishment. And it really is needing to be used as a tool as opposed to well, you're in trouble, so okay, use these tools. Okay, so we talked about using the tools. We talked about teaching moments used, and also that it's not intended to be punitive. So I want to move on to the student of concern, which was chapter 9. What I knew it meant student of concern. I really didn't know much. I assumed it was a student that was exhibiting some concerning behaviors, but I didn't really know much more about that. What I wonder was, okay, what does this imply? What does SOC mean? Why is this useful, and how can it help the school overall? So it's great to identify student of concerns, but what do you do with that information? How do you handle that? And so page 77, it says, this quote has really, really, really impacted me. It says, the reality is that children do not grow out of trauma, they grow into it. The trauma doesn't go away. It's not just something that we say, oh great, that happened, now we're over it. It literally, we have a friend right now who is fostering 3 sisters, and it is just evident that the 11-year-old has been through so much trauma, and they're at this point where they don't know how to help her, and it's clear that she's growing into it, that it's not going away, and she hasn't figured out how to deal with it. And so that has been really interesting to follow them in their journey, because our foster child is a baby, so she doesn't have the same traumatic experiences. But to be able, and honestly, this is really cool, to be able to take what I'm learning in this in this course, in this program, and be able to go to her with some advice and some wisdom based on what they're dealing with their kid has been really, really impactful. And so just a little side note of this is awesome, and I really do believe that that getting this information out there is changing lives, and it's going to change kids' experiences of the world. So SOC, Student of Concern, basically these are proactive measures along with identifying disruptive behaviors early and leads to easier interventions and more academic success. This is a quote read from page 78. If we can identify students of concern early, they don't need to be consistent concerns. Like, we can help them earlier. We can help it become a huge issue and a huge problem. And so I really like this idea of student of concerns, and that there's a whole process that one goes through, that the schools go through in order to fill out a form about these students, and then the adults can then be a part of this caring process for them, that these students aren't alone. They are picked. They are given attention that they so desperately need. I wanted to read a quote that I found on page 80 because this was also really impactful. It talks about traumatic stress, that it impacts a developing child's brain. Clarity of thought, sequential thinking, and speed of processing can be severely hindered. Or as one child put it, I feel like I have cobwebs in my brain. This just goes to highlight again the importance of focusing on the child and not just the behavior. The behavior is simply a symptom of an underlying thing that's going on. Just like any fear and pain, it's not just about the fact that your arm hurts. Like, why does your arm hurt? Is it broken? Okay, well, if you have a broken arm, you don't just take Motrin. You actually have to deal with the break, and you have to heal it. You have to impact it in a specific way towards that break. And one of the things that I love so much is with that is a broken bone, once healed, is actually stronger than any other part in the body. And so I really believe that is also a testament to children that have been traumatized, that if we can help them be resilient and we can help them work through this, they can be stronger members of society than anybody else we could even imagine. And I really do believe that. So I want to move on to chapter 12, which is the student resource officer. I'm just looking in my book. So what I knew every school had one, but I just assumed that they helped with car pickup and car drop off. I didn't really realize there was an intention other than that, because that's the only time we really see our student resource officers, at the beginning and the end of the day. So I said, every school has one. What I wonder, I didn't really know what to wonder, because I just assumed that was their purpose. And so I love that this book, our textbook, featured really intentional, for high school at least, the student resource officer has a really intentional purpose in actually building a bond. And I love this at the very start of the chapter. It's very important to make sure that this individual works to foster better relationships between law enforcement and the students. So one of the examples, the big overall highlight that I got from this is that students may make decisions where they have to be taken into custody, they have to be handcuffed, or they have to be escorted off the premises because they did something illegal, and they have to be booked and blah, 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 blah. But the student resource officer doesn't have to be degrading. It doesn't have to be a me against you thing. It can be a, hey, I know this was really hard, and I know that this, I know that this is probably really scary, but I'm here for you. Because obviously there are consequences to our actions, and if you do something illegal and you get picked up for it, there's obviously consequences there, but they don't have to be degrading and nasty and make it even worse. And so I love that this talked about still maintaining that relationship, that human to human interaction, and it really, I think, gives perspective to how we treat other people And so often we have like police officers up here on a pedestal as like they're better than we are or whatever. And this kind of wiped that away from me and said it doesn't have to be that way. And so I thought that was really cool, that even if, again, your decisions don't define who you are as a person, that you are less than. And this just, it really highlighted that for me. The last chapter that I want to talk about is chapter 16. And again, this will be really short and sweet, but this was about relationships. And what I knew they were key. I know that this is an overarching theme through this whole program, through this whole study, is that relational strategies are important. They can literally change the game. And so what I wonder is, at this point, I'm like, tell me more. Tell me, show me, give me more examples. What can this look like? And so the one thing that I want to pull from this was found on page 68. It said, we've been asking, how do I get Billy to change his behavior? This is the wrong question, because Billy's struggle isn't behaviorally based. His struggle is, based in gaps in his development, past and or present trauma, negative beliefs, and lack of relationships and dysregulation. If we can approach students from a relationship-based lens, if we can approach students that way, and we can look at their past trauma, gaps in their development, the negative beliefs they have about themselves, their lack of relationships, their inability to self-regulate, if we can start approaching those things and start helping students heal in those areas, we can see them begin to rise to the occasion and excel. I truly believe in self-fulfilling prophecies, and I believe that what we speak over people matters, and how we, the words that we use matter with ourselves as well as other people. And so relationships, it is so important that we are able to, as educators, to build that bridge, encourage our students, identify when they may need some extra time or some extra love or some extra effort. I have some students that I absolutely give them positive affirmations. I write sticky notes on a positive affirmation while they're at recess, and I put it on their desk because I know that they need that day. I have another student who he has a high score of ACEs, and mom just got back from jail, and he is so concerned that he's going to get home from school one day and mom's not going to be there, that he has intentionally pottied in his pants so that he can call mom and make sure that she's there. And constantly saying, oh, mom's going to check me out today. I might have a headache today, so mom can check me out, because he wants to be with mom. And he's failing the third grade because he can't concentrate. And part of this is because of all of this stuff that we've already mentioned. And so when we met with mom, one of the suggestions I said is, Mom, why don't you write a bunch of sticky notes, love notes basically, and send them to me in an envelope. Don't tell him you're doing it. And so if he's having a hard day, or he just needs a little bit of extra encouragement, I can put that on his desk. I can just sneak that in there, so to help give him that extra, that extra oomph. And I think if educators can really take a step back from how busy and overwhelmed they are, because believe me, it is so busy and it is so stinking overwhelming at times, and we can really see children for the human beings they are and not the test scores that they're not, we can make a huge and impactful difference in their life. So that is my, I know I talked a lot, this is a long video, but thank you for hanging in there and watching my Crain's Captain Log number 2. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you.